Scene, warm afternoon, Y/N's home. Y/N was baking cookies, humming softly to herself as the sweet aroma filled the kitchen. Suddenly, a small but familiar voice echoed through the house. "Mommy, I'm home." Y/N's smile widened as she wiped her hands on a towel and stepped out of the kitchen. There, standing with a bright grin, was her 6-year-old daughter, Taehyung. Y/N, welcome, my baby. Before Y/N could reach Taehyung, a soft voice echoed from behind, full of toddler babble. "Nana nana. Bye woo." Y/N and Taehyung both burst into laughter, turning to see little Taehyung, Y/N's toddler son, trying to keep up with the conversation. Y/N, with a playful tone, sorry. Taehyung is also my baby." She squished the toddler's chubby cheeks as he let out a joyful giggle. Taehyung, with a pout, so jealous, huh? Y/N chuckled, leaning down to Taehyung's level. Y/N, how was your day? Taehyung, good. But today Dad was. Y/N quickly pulled her into a comforting hug, gently stroking her hair. Y/N, it's okay, baby. Forgive him. Taehyung. Who's forgiving me now? Both Y/N and Taehyung turned toward the door, where a V stood with a grin, his eyes twinkling. Taehyung, now sitting on the floor, was happily coloring, oblivious to the scene. Taehyung, crossing her arms, Appa. You were supposed. Y/N, with a teasing glare, yes. And you were supposed to accompany me to the doctor. KIMTAEHYUNG, stop getting on my nerves. Yes, Taehyung became V for world because KIMTAEHYUNG died 7.5 years ago. This is Kim V for world. Taehyung furrowed his brows, pretending as if he didn't remember. His innocent act only made Y/N roll her eyes. Taehyung, laughing, urgent work came up, wifey. Do you think I have that much courage? He added playfully, pretending to be scared, causing Taehyung to giggle. Y/N, don't talk to me. Taehyung, grinning, Mommy, you just told me to forgive him, and look at you. Taehyung chuckled, picking up Taehyung and twirling her around as she hugged him tight. Y/N's eyes widened in mock betrayal. Y/N, you switched sides so fast. Taehyung, I'm always in my Appa's team. Taehyung, proudly, of course. Y/N scooped up Taehyung, who was babbling away, his tiny hands reaching for her hair. Taehyung. Bye, shka. Mama. His cheeky smile brought joy to everyone's face. Taehyung, pouting dramatically. Oh no. Our team is weak. This goofball is with them. Taehyung grinned, while Y/N's heart fluttered for a second. Taehyung noticed but chose to ignore it, knowing she wouldn't admit how much she adored their little family moments. Taehyung, changing the subject, so, what did the doctor say? Y/N, sighing, he said we need to help him lose some weight, it's not healthy for him to be so chubby. Taehyung, teasing, sounds like a big task. Y/N nodded, her worry visible. Later in the evening Taehyung was playing with Taehyung, her laughter filling the living room, while Y/N stood in the kitchen, washing the dishes. Suddenly, she felt familiar arms wrap around her waist. Taehyung hugged her from behind, and she didn't flinch, this was his habit. Taehyung, softly, why do you look sad? Y/N leaned into him, taking in the comfort his presence offered. Y/N, her voice heavy, look at Taehyung. She's still so weak, she hasn't improved much. And with her heart problem. Her voice cracked, her eyes filling with tears. Taehyung tightened his hold on her, his own heart aching. Taehyung, reassuringly, it's okay. Hobi-hyung said she can have surgery after she turns 7, and that's just 5 months away. She'll be okay. She's a fighter. Y/N nodded but couldn't shake the worry. Taehyung tried to lighten the mood. Taehyung, right now, you should focus on controlling that little dinosaur in the living room. Y/N, laughing through her tears, yeah. Don't call my son that. Taehyung, grinning, wow, so I can't call him a baby dinosaur, but you can call him a baby elephant? So unfair. Y/N, pouting, you took such good care of me and fed me so much when I was pregnant that he was born like a little elephant. Taehyung, grinning, wow, so I can't call him a baby dinosaur, but you can call him a baby elephant? So unfair. Y/N, pouting, you took such good care of me and fed me so much when I was pregnant that he was born like a little elephant. Taehyung, listen to me. Thv is a fighter, okay? When you were pregnant with Taewoo, we had everything, home, money, food. But with Thv? We had nothing. No money, no food, no home. We struggled every single day. And remember when the doctors said she might not make it? But she did, Y/N. She's here, she's going to school, she has friends, she's living a normal life. And I know, my little tiger will nail this surgery too. Flashback, one day before the wedding Taehyung sat in his room, staring at the ceiling, cursing his fate. His heart was heavy, and his mind raced with thoughts of Y/N, of the life they could have had together. The door creaked open, and Taehyung expected it to be his mother. Mrs. Kim entered, but she wasn't alone. Mrs. Kim, Yeri is here. Taehyung looked up to see Yeri, who waved shyly at him. Mrs. Kim smiled coldly. Mrs. Kim, you two should talk. I'll send some snacks with the maids. Yeri, sure. Mrs. Kim's sharp gaze warned Taehyung not to say anything foolish, and he nodded reluctantly. As Mrs. Kim left, Yeri's observant eyes caught the tension. Yeri, sitting down in front of him, how are you? Taehyung simply nodded, his throat too tight to speak. Yeri sighed deeply, cutting straight to the point. Yeri, I'm going to be blunt, Tae. What's wrong? Do you even want this marriage? Taehyung blinked in surprise, caught off guard by her honesty. He hesitated. Yeri, do you love someone else? The silence was loud, and Yeri's patience thinned. Yeri, who is she? Taehyung's heart raced, but instead of answering, he asked a question of his own. Taehyung, did my mom send you? Yeri shook her head. Yeri, no. I came here because tomorrow, I'm supposed to sign away my life to a man who looks like he's suffocating. But I can't marry you, Tae. I can't ruin both our lives. Her voice trembled, and she stood up, her heart breaking at the realization that she had to walk away. But before she could leave, Taehyung stopped her. Taehyung, no. If you say no, she'll know I said something, and she'll hurt her. Yeri froze, her eyes wide with shock. Yeri, aunt. Taehyung nodded, his face filled with despair. Yeri sat back down, the weight of the situation sinking in. Yeri, we have to find a way out. Taehyung, yes. Without them noticing. Yeri, determined, how about you run away with her? Taehyung, you think they won't find us? Yeri sighed, frustrated. Yeri, then what? Change the bride? Taehyung shook his head, lost for options. Yeri, then what else, idiot? Taehyung, his voice cracking, I don't know. The only way out is if I die. Yeri's eyes widened as an idea sparked in her mind. Yeri, wait. Idea. Taehyung, alarmed. Shh. What? Yeri grinned mischievously. Yeri, die. Taehyung, what? Yeri, oh, God, not for real, you idiot. We have to do something dramatic. And we'll need help. Taehyung, but who? Yeri smirked, pulling out her phone. Yeri, remember J-Hope? Taehyung nodded, recalling his friend J-Hope, who had been forbidden from their elite circle due to his middle-class background. Taehyung, confused, what will he do? Yeri, he's a doctor now. Actually, the director of a hospital. Taehyung smiled despite himself, proud of his friend's success. Maybe there was hope after all. Yeri, hey. Busy? J-Hope, no, just got out of OT. Anything I can do for you? Yeri, yes, remember Taehyung? There was a pause, then a shift in J-Hope's tone, concerned. J-Hope?
Yeah.
What's wrong? What happened? Taehyung. J-Hope, Taehyung. What's going on? Taehyung, please help me. I don't know what else to do. J-Hope, anything for you, just tell me. After a tense conversation, Yeri and Taehyung told J-Hope everything, about the forced marriage, the pressure, and their plan to fake Taehyung's death. J-Hope listened carefully, then took a deep breath. J-Hope, beta blockers. They'll slow his heart rate, making his pulse almost undetectable. But you'll need another injection within an hour to stabilize him again. Yeri, 1 hour is more than enough. Taehyung will pretend to have a heart attack, and will call the ambulance. J-Hope, I'll be waiting at the hospital. I'll inject him, and it'll make his pulse so weak, it'll seem like he's dead. Yeri, then, we'll have an ambulance ready to take him straight to your hospital. J-Hope, and I'll pronounce him dead. Everything will look real. Yeri, great. But we might need more help. Taehyung, will it really go as planned? Yeri, we need help from more people. J-Hope, who else? Yeri, my parents. I need to tell them. Taehyung, hesitating, no, Yeri, listen. My mom comes from a middle-class family, and my parents love each other. Even my dad once told me if I ever loved someone, no matter their job or status, he would support me. Trust me, they'll help. The next day, execution of the plan. Yeri spoke to her mother, Mrs. Lee, who was initially hesitant but couldn't bear to see her daughter and Taehyung suffer. After much convincing, Mrs. Lee agreed to the plan, understanding what was at stake. Yeri explained everyone's role, and Mrs. Lee and Y/N agreed to help. After J-Hope pronounced Taehyung dead at the hospital, Y/N left, heartbroken but ready for her part of the plan. She headed to a cafe where Mrs. Lee was waiting with their luggage. As they stepped outside, Mr. Kang's driver picked them up and drove them to Kang's farmhouse, a place where no one lived and they could hide. 3 weeks later, new beginnings. The Kim family received fake ashes, and in the dead of night, J-Hope helped Taehyung slip out of the hospital in a doctor's uniform. He dropped Taehyung off at the farmhouse, where he was reunited with Y/N and Mrs. Lee. They waited for a few weeks, laying low. Eventually, Yeri helped the trio get to Incheon, where Taehyung, Y/N, and Mrs. Lee found temporary refuge with Jimin, one of Taehyung's closest friends. It was a rough start. Taehyung couldn't work because he didn't have any degrees with him, and Y/N was pregnant, which made everything even harder. Despite this, Taehyung refused to let Y/N work in people's homes, determined to find a better way for them to survive. 5 months later, J-Hope visited Taehyung and handed him something precious, a watch. J-Hope, Yeri said you left this at the farmhouse. Now, it's time to take it back. He passed Taehyung his Patek Philippe Sky Moon Tourbillon, worth millions of dollars. Taehyung sold the watch online for $3 million, using $1 million to buy a house and another $1 million to start a restaurant. The remaining money was saved for their future, a fresh start as they rebuilt their lives in secret. The sound of a sudden shout pulled them out of their thoughts. Appa. Both Y/N and Taehyung turned to see Thv standing in the living room, her face scrunched in frustration. They rushed towards her, concerned but quickly relieved to see what was happening. Y/N, Thv. Thv stood there, rubbing her scalp, while Taewoo clung to her hair with his tiny hands. Taehyung stepped in, gently prying Taewoo's fist open. Taehyung, why, Taewoo? Taewoo looked up at his father, his little face scrunched in confusion. Taewoo, bye-bye, da-da. Taehyung chuckled, his frustration melting away. Taehyung, yes, I'm your dada, Taewoo. He kissed his son's chubby cheeks, making Taewoo giggle, while Thv pouted, still rubbing her scalp. Thv, no. He's my dad. Taewoo, not understanding much, responded with a long, dramatic Y/N, Thv, he's so little, not even 2 years old yet. And you're all grown up. Thv pouted even more, but Y/N hugged her close, soothing her while Taewoo giggled and licked Taehyung's cheek, making him laugh. It was a moment of pure happiness, a perfect snapshot of their little family, together and content. About Taehyung's parents. Taehyung's father passed away just 2 years after the chaos of his marriage and escape. Taehyung blamed himself for everything that happened, especially after hearing the news from Yeri. Despite the danger, he attended the funeral in disguise, hiding behind a mask to avoid being recognized. As for his mother, life had taken a darker turn. Over time, the losses mounted, and the Kim family's business faltered. The once powerful family faced financial ruin. The pressure became too much for Mrs. Kim. She lost her grip on reality, creating an imaginary version of her husband and son to cope with the emptiness. 4 years ago, in her delusion, she took her own life by jumping from a mental hospital building. Despite the pain of his past, Taehyung emerged stronger, living under the alias of Kim V to the world. His business empire soared to new heights, becoming even more successful than before. But more than wealth, he found joy in his life with Y/N and their 2 children, his tigress, his wife, and their baby dinosaur. They were his true happiness, his everything. It took time to move on, but Yeri did. Taehyung and Yin thanked Yeri and J-Hope for everything that did for them. Taehyung apologized for not loving her. But Yeri told him it wasn't his fault. You can do love it just speened.